fine.
The worst that can happen is I might just suddenly burst into song.
It's a great way to end it.
Yeah, I don't mind, you know. I'll get a gig at the next musical. Actually, Emma might burst into song. We'll burst into song together.
Let's see.
Hi, and welcome to the fabulous Dome Theatre in Brighton, which is currently hosting Unreal City, which is a wonderful collaboration between dreamthinkspeak and Access All Areas. I'm Colin Hambrook. I'm an older white man wearing glasses and a heavy black overcoat. I'm founding editor of Disability Arts Online, which is a journal which supports disabled artists, and really pleased to be here for this panel discussion on access in immersive technology and performance. And I'd like to start off by introducing our panel. We have Emma Selwyn, who is an actor with Access All Areas, and she's taking part in Unreal City. And they're here with Lucy Andrews, who is Access Manager at Access All Areas. And on my left is the wonderful Tristan Sharps, who is Artistic Director of dreamthinkspeak, which you set up in Brighton in 1999. And we also have with us James Turnbull, who is Creative Director at Frolic, working across theatre, festivals and digital innovation. James previously spearheaded the Tom Tech for the Old Market Arts Centre, and more recently led audience management for RSC's Dreaming Online project as part of the Future project. And last but by no means least is Ghislaine Boddington, who has background in performing arts, works as a curator, presenter and consultant. Ghislaine is creative director of Body Data Space, which is a very innovative collective. She's presenter for BBC World Service, reader in digital immersion at the University of Greenwich, and a member of the DCMS College of Experts, as well as a trustee for Sternet Futures. And so to kick us off, if I might go to you, Tristan, and tell us a bit about Unreal City.
Yes, well, hello, my name is Tristan, and I am wearing a black fleece and a blue jacket. And Unreal City came about through a series of workshops with Access All Areas and with Emma and her colleagues at Access All Areas, other performers. And we did these workshops in and around various locations in London to begin with. And one of those locations was Liverpool Street Station. And anyone who knows Liverpool Street Station will know that that's an extremely busy hub, and also a very difficult place to navigate your way around. And that's something certainly that we discovered when we were working there. It's got about 12 different entrances and or exits into it, and the way it relates to the roads all around it and the way it relates to the pedestrian pathways all around it is really confusing.
And there were roadworks at the time, I think. I think the Elizabeth line was in the process of being built at the time.
Yeah, there were a lot of roadworks around there, and that just made it even more confusing. And it's and I think every town or city has got those very confusing moments in it, and it's often around a railway station because they just don't connect really well to the infrastructure all around. And one of the things that came out of that was the difficulty of navigating your way through a city, going from A to B, and even coming into rehearsals for the workshops. you're bombarded by so many different sensorial stimuli. There's so much sound pollution, light pollution. There are signs that aren't being very clear. There are conflicting messages in the architecture around you about how you can get from A to B. And that was one thing that came out. And the other thing that came out was online worlds, and how living through an online world can offer you the protection that, that being quite vulnerable, trying to work your way around a city doesn't necessarily give you. And out of that came the idea of creating Unreal City, which is basically the premise of which is a brand new smart city district that is completely accessible for everyone, but we built it purely in a virtual space, so it only exists in virtual reality. And that was basically that was the birth of the show.
And that Unreal City has this kind of fabulous kind of presentation of being a hybrid between online and virtual and live performance. And Emma, you're acting in Unreal City, and I wanted to ask you what your understanding is of how autistic communities are engaging with online life, and what it was like for you creating an avatar for the show.
Okay. Give me a moment to think. Sorry, can I have the questions again, please?
The first question on his own.
Yeah. So what's your understanding of how autistic communities are engaging with online life?
I mean, like mainstream society, I guess, every community has its own hubs, every interest has its own hubs. People might go to what interests them. And in some ways, online spaces can teach people about things they want to learn about in life. I suppose maybe one massive question to ask for another space and time is whether there could be a potential for bias to sway people towards certain things, like maybe people's content can be changed through algorithms without them realizing it. So on some level, like with pretty much everyone on the internet, you get community. Some of these communities can be incredibly positive, but then other communities can also be extremely enabling, encouraging people to keep hold of any toxic behavior they've chosen to inhabit. And it's a minefield, even if you do try and be as neutral as possible. And I'm not talking about autistic people specifically. I'm thinking for all neurotypes. And you've also got to bear in mind that there are many, many people, autistic and particularly learning disabled people, who just cannot access those online spaces at all, whether that's due to having curfews on their online habits, through being in supported living and or living with others who monitor them, or whether those people might end up accidentally bypassing monitors intended for their safety.
There are lots of positives and negatives, aren't there? And I think one of the important things about Unreal City is that it's sort of opening up a discussion.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what was it like creating an avatar for the show?
Well, it was just creating an avatar.
Do you remember working at the very beginning, Emma, with the workshops you were doing, and we spoke about that?
Oh yeah, I know what you mean now. So basically, each of the actors has has a couple of avatars, and I worked on creating an avatar for each actor for part of the show. So I'd I'd ask the person what they look like or look at them, because all these people who I created avatars for initially, I know quite well and have known for a few years. And I tried to find features that either went with what they actually looked like at the time, or I went with features that they wanted. For example, Miss Anonymous, the astronaut, she's got silver hair in the avatar, whereas the actor who plays Miss Anonymous in real life has black or blonde hair, depending on what they do with it. And some people may choose to have accessibility aids if they use them, but then I don't know how many platforms actually include them, and I don't know whether all of them do. Some people who do need aids, mobility aids, accessibility aids, they might want them in for front and center, or they might just say, no, I want to look normate as much as possible.
I think one of the great things about it is you can play, can't you? You can play with identity, and there's some very flamboyant avatars in Unreal City. And Ghislaine, if I might turn to you, as an expert in immersive experience, can you tell us something about what it is about immersion, that why do humans like it? What is it that is appealing to us about it?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Ghislaine, white woman in her 50s, and I'm wearing a teal polo neck jumper and shawl. So yeah, immersion, it's one of those fascinating things, isn't it? And we've probably all got our own reasons why we kind of want to go in there and delve in there. But it's not something new. It's not just coming from the digital. In fact, if you think about cave paintings, they were definitely part of immersive experiences, with probably singing and dancing and fireplaces and food and everything while they drew the paintings on the walls. And cathedrals are a really good example of early immersion, moving towards that huge portal, which actually you go in, the light comes around you from the stained glass windows, and there's smell of frankincense and the echo of sound. And so I think that we have a human need to immerse ourselves in something bigger than us, something greater. Sometimes it could be more spiritual for some people, sometimes it could be more psychedelic for other people. And what we're doing with the digital world is actually finding a way to make that a parallel world, a virtual world for us. So, and as Emma says, the other really special thing about that, as Emma explained really, is how you represent yourself within those virtual spaces, and the choices that you have with your avatars to have silver hair or be 8 foot tall, or have your accessibility tools with you or not, and choose to be totally different. And people have multiple different identities in different worlds that they work in, different, whether they're a work world or a gaming world or whatever. But I think there's something very important about the escapism of it from our kind of drudgery everyday lives for many people, and also during this last 2 years, of course, the escapism into communities, as Emma mentioned, when many of us have been in lockdown or in solitary situations.
Thanks. And Tristan, if I might turn back to you, and virtual reality events, it's very much in development, the whole kind of field, isn't it? But they usually mitigate against access. And I wanted to ask you how you've reduced inaccessibility for this production in particular, and if you could say something about duty of care for audiences for Unreal City.
Yes, absolutely. Just one thing to mention that Emma there was also referring to Avakin Life, which is something quite interesting. I think that was something that Emma introduced me to and introduced us to, the company to, and that was definitely quite a big influence on Unreal City and how we work that. Yeah, I mean, I often find that I think VR still feels to me like an event experience. And I think that although, of course, there are people who have VR headsets in their own homes and they'll use them in their own homes, to me, it still feels like it's an event. And I think that when I tend to go to those events, you know, if it's a very curated, bespoke event that is one particular production, one particular example I went to, I found myself being pulled and pushed in every single direction and being shouted at and being thrust into different sort of spaces, and I felt very kind of, certainly for me, when I'm creating work, I like to have a space as an audience, and I found that quite challenging. Or you sometimes go to VR events which are big open plan spaces, and there's lots and lots of different hubs where there's a VR experience happening. And there are a couple of people are fitting a VR headset on you. They don't ask you if you want to check the sound level or if the lighting level is comfortable. Once the headset is on you, they're often the people who are helping you put the headset on are chattering away about something or chattering on the phone, so you hear them outside. You hear other people talking and walking past, and phones are going off, and then at the end of it, somebody asks you immediately, how did you find that? How did you find that? You know, would you like to write down your feeling? And I just, it's a big sensorial bombardment putting on a VR headset for everybody. And yeah, Emma, do you want to?
Yes, actually, leaping on about accessibility things, I'd just like to apologise for not having done an audio description of myself before due to inaccessible presentation. I'm white, I have long dark brown hair, I'm wearing blue-purple iridescent glasses, red tie-dye cardigan and a bright blue jumper. And back to what I actually wanted to say, Tristan, leaping off from what you were saying, is one accessibility thing that I personally have come across even, and maybe you have, James, is it?
Yeah.
I'm just looking to you, or Colin, just because you're wearing glasses. Like, some people find VR very challenging, because if you're astigmatic, for example, because each eye is showing a very slightly different image, it can make you feel a little bit, sometimes it can be very disorienting. And also, for me personally alone, I cannot speak for anyone else, with some VR headsets that I've tried so far, I get like, if you've ever seen a person on TV wearing stripes and they kind of shimmer in a sort of rainbow pattern, this is known as the moire effect, M-O-I-R-E acute. I get that, and it makes things very difficult for me, or you might end up bumping into things because your proprioception is thrown off by not being able to use your real eyes, as it were, potentially. Any access stuff that you think could come up for users?
No, not at the moment. I think
Okay, sorry.
I think with Unreal City, you've done a lot to kind of explain to your audience what's going to happen before the show, which I think is really useful.
Yes, I mean, we try and strike a balance because there's quite a lot of secret. We try not to give away all our secrets of exactly what you're going to experience, but certainly on the physical aspect about what's going to be happening when there's a headset goes on you, and then you're given a choice about the sound levels and lighting levels. You have a range of hearing options that we offer as well. Things which I personally have very rarely come across when I've been to a VR event. And Gareth Fry, our sound designer, is really good on this. He's done a lot of research on this, and actually on his website there is a lot of information, free information, about exactly what to do with various different hearing options. And it's not expensive, and it's not difficult. It's something that we can all do, and it's something that we should all be doing, I think.
And that can help mitigate against the disorientation that I think can be quite common in experience, especially with the Oculus headsets.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's always going to be some disorientation, but I think that helps to mitigate it, definitely, yeah.
Thanks. And James, kind of move to you now to kind of ask you about the wider implications of this hybrid of it's certainly kind of, it's the first time, Unreal City is the first time I've experienced it. And you've sort of been working with this hybrid of live and virtual performance and kind of finding audiences for it. Can you tell us a bit about how you make it welcome to wider audiences?
I think that, and hello, I'm James, and I'm wearing grey trousers, black top, and my brightest shoes, which are blue with a stripe of pink on them. So I've worked a lot with sort of commissioning work with artists making virtual reality, but also with audiences seeing it and what their experience of it seeing it. And I think there's an opportunity in that we have to reinvent the theatre and the building in which we see the culture, as well as the piece you're watching. So in this piece here, Tristram's team and Axel Wearers have built an environment in which for you to experience that with the technology in the middle of it. And I think that's a huge opportunity. So these buildings, I mean, Brighton Dome does wonderful work, but these theatres up and down the country and exhibition halls are quite inaccessible in their location, or the way that their toilets aren't balanced between genders, or whatever the reason might be that you can't access that building at that time. The opportunity with VR is you can reinvent both those things. So if those problems existed before, we can take them away. And a lot of that is centric on the idea of, although it can be a shared experience, and lots of people can experience a similar thing, it doesn't have to be the same. If you come and sit in this 2,000-seat auditorium, you have to watch the same thing as everyone else in real time. And if you don't process like that, don't operate like that, or need some time out, you can't join in with the work again. So that's what the opportunity is with VR. But it's, I mean, I say it's new. It's not new, but it feels like we're still at the very early stages of how we build these big worlds and explore these worlds. And what we ask our audiences to do when they're in headset, it is really, Emma, stuff you said there was really profound and clear. Like, it's very discombobulating when you put something on your face and you're taking senses away from your audiences more than we do for any other art form, I imagine, where we sort of ask for that level of trust. I always compare it to when you're a kid and you get a tea towel wrapped around your eyes and taken through the woods holding a string. It's that level of responsibility, your host or your actor working with you to do that.
Or maybe a game of pin the tail on the donkey.
Great example.
But that hybrid point is really important in this piece, isn't it? The actual move between the virtual reality and the physical, back to the virtual reality and the physical. And I'm long time been interested in that blending of the virtual and the physical. And I think now, with the last couple of years, for most of us, have been at points just in the virtual, a lot, apart from physical, in our homes, yeah. And now we're slightly emerging here in the UK, not necessarily worldwide yet, but in the UK, into what I believe should stay hybrid, actually, because hybrid is one of the most inclusive things there is. Because there's been so many people who've been able to be involved in things that they weren't able to at all before during this lockdown period. And the numbers of people that have accessed conferences or events or talks or been able to see things live that, and not just linked to disability. I think here we need to make the point wider, because actually there's so many people who are caught at home because they're carers for children or senior. They're caught at home because they don't have the economic ability to be able to travel, to get on a plane, or even just to go to the next town or whatever to see that event or pay for it. So I put a plea out here for absolutely everyone continuing to work in this way, as you have been doing on this piece, to explore these new hybrid formats of virtual physical, which are so important for inclusivity, but also which I think younger generations are very able to deal with.
And when we were talking yesterday, the important thing that you emphasised was the development of these kind of virtual worlds, that they be led by inclusion.
Absolutely. We've got a very clear, I mean, you know, in the UK we're not doing badly. Inclusive by design, or, you know, design-led inclusion, yeah, and is now coming in at the base of all training around design. And where I work at University of Greenwich, the School of Design there leads with diversity and inclusion into every single course it does. And I think just a bit like Tristan with this work, you're bringing in your team of body experts, and you're all working with the body into this, because it's about the body and it's about the sensory, enhancing the senses. We need the inclusion aspects to be brought in absolutely at the beginning of any idea, whether it's hardware, software, an experience or whatever. And that, think we've learnt that now, and it needs to be absolute from this point, hybridity and design by inclusion from the baseline point.
I think especially for so many disabled communities who I know lots of people, lots of artists who haven't been outside their door for 2 years, and so that opportunity to take part in culture is really important.
No, we can't just go back to what it was, because we just leave out loads of people. So.
Exactly, because again, people might not necessarily have the economic ability to access an online space, or they might not have the autonomy to because of others in their lives. And I think no one online platform, whether that's VR or Discord, Twitter, or any other number of social networks, is going to be perfect. It just isn't. Real life isn't perfect. Virtuality isn't perfect. Therefore, let's just combine the two. Hybridity, you know?
And Emma, why do you think it's so important for disabled people to experience this on Unreal City?
I think it's important for those who aren't disabled to experience Unreal City, because it means they'll be able to see disabled professionals in a capacity they might not have expected before. If we do get disabled people in as well, maybe they'll see others in similar boats to them that might have similar lived experiences to them and that might have different lived experiences to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that opportunity to see disabled professionals in performance is something is really exciting about this show in particular. And you know, there's some beautiful moments in it where the kind of that blending of virtual experience and live performance kind of really take you by surprise without giving too much away.
Yeah, I think that hybridity and that mixing of different technologies, I think is really interesting. And I think the piece, I think working in virtual reality, I find it fascinating, not just because it's a new way to tell a story, it's actually completely a new way of thinking about everything. It's even a new way of thinking about reality. You know, I think maybe we have to alter what our notion of reality is. It's a sort of thing that philosophers have been talking about for centuries, and astrophysicists for decades, maybe century or two as well, I don't know. But that there are many different kinds of realities, and I think that I hope that one aspect of the show is also a way into what could be a very complicated argument, but just gives you a very, very strong sense of what it's like to be in a space where you're not sure if it's a real space or an unreal space.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is very strong. And something as well, Emma, that just made me think when you were talking to us in the rehearsals about Avakin Life, I'm not specifically just that particular platform, but just that sense of like being an avatar, you can, in a way, you can escape yourself.
Yeah.
But also, you can reinvent yourself.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. So it's creative as well. It's not just, and that's something we all do. We all create ourselves.
And also, even if it's not on Avakin Life or whatever, if you think about, well, this happens a lot for fantasy and RPG video games nowadays, but way back in the day, like, I'm going to majorly stereotype here, but if you were I was going to say if you were a boy, but if you're a kid and you were into WWE games, with many of them, you could create your own wrestler. I mean, the options might be limited and you might end up with really strange-looking morphed figures, limited colour palettes, etc. But you could have a go at being someone different. And if you didn't want to be that, you could pretend to be Seth Rollins or The Rock or Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant or whoever for a day. You could be someone else, even if you couldn't necessarily create your own thing. And I think, and I think even being able to take on someone else's persona can be interesting.
Absolutely.
And it can even potentially help you figure out stuff about yourself. Or remind you of
really
stuff that you used to experience but couldn't, etc. So much potential.
And it's definitely an area that VR's been exploring. This point of view, it's called, isn't it? POV, point of view, standing in someone else's shoes, and actually by standing in the other's shoes, maybe seeing round the corner and actually recognising what that other person is going through. So there is some work being done in VR and trauma around this, with domestic violence, with conflict scenarios like Palestine, Israel, etc., where, you know, trying to help people understand the other's point of view, and there's not a lot of research results on it yet in terms of like real total proof that this is working, but there's some very good deep research happening in this now.
Yeah, and can I just say that there's also been VR research projects about jobs, like I've seen or heard somewhere about a fly.
Fly is very distracting.
About a fly in a VR simulator, I'm joking, about a VR simulator where you could be a barista. Like I've heard sometimes things like that can be used for teaching autistic people how to do jobs without the bustle of customers, Karen's going, you made my latte wrong, and other staff in and out around them. But again, I think it's also important to consider the converse. Like, could it potentially be that VR could be used to encourage people to assimilate to being one specific thing? Because I think, I don't know, this is just, honestly, there are so many complicated topics and stuff we could talk about.
Because if you think about sound, we use sound to chill out, for ambient reasons, we use sound to dance, for joy, but it's also used in torture. And VR has that, obviously, that edge too. So there's a whole set of ethics that needs to be placed into, you know, all making of these new environments, etc. And we don't have the regulations. There's no rules and regulations. It's very, very open as yet because technology goes so fast and governments are so slow in responding to it. So, but there's definitely a set of morals and ethics. You're completely right in terms of actually how this work is used for the best possible outcomes.
Can I mention just something that Emma was saying there, which I think is quite interesting, that we perhaps touch on in Unreal City as well, is that Unreal City, where everything is designed to be fully accessible, it has so many good things going for it. But on the other hand, I think there is an issue that it takes out all the messiness of life that is also a kind of an important part of life as well. And I think it's sort of, this is my own view, but I think it asks that question around, is it good to have this very utopian, perfect world, or actually is it sometimes necessary for us all to grow, that we do have the sort of messiness that world outside of Unreal City sort of brings in. And I think the question, the piece doesn't try to answer that, it just tries to pose that as a question.
Yeah. And James, if I might turn to you at this point, I know you've done a lot of work, especially with the TomTech and through Frolic, of kind of reaching out to audiences and finding out what audiences think of this. And what are your reflections on?
I think broadly, so trying to think about, come to talk about the idea of like access in immersive, so thinking about it like a bolt-on, which we've done for years in theatre, and we're very slow at it. So if you require subtitles or surtitles when you go to theatre, or BSL translation, you get to pick 2 shows if you're lucky out of the run to go on. So you have to go on a Thursday at 2 o'clock. I don't want to go Thursday at 2 o'clock. I want to go on Wednesday at whatever. So the opportunity is there to redesign that in a way that you can really support people through that idea. Access isn't, in this sense, access isn't a bolt-on, it's a commercial decision, because the more people that can access your work and engage with your work on different levels, then the more people ultimately are going to pay for it, or you're going to get in. So I think it's a real opportunity, because there isn't this, the government will take years, if they ever come up with a strategy around what safety looks like in an immersive space or how we interact. I think we're going to have to find that ourselves. The commercial sector largely comes from a United States, Silicon Valley. They have a very monocultural view of the world. They come from one sort of look on it. And so the innovation won't come from that. That's why these projects are really, really important. And the work you're doing now, even in R&D stages like this, is asking those questions going, is that too empty? And what is that level of what we put in? And how does our work affect the people that watch it? More so perhaps that we would ever pick up from if you were touring as a concert or as a theatre show, your audience is, if you know you've got a couple of star show and really they're not enjoying it, you can pick it up, but you don't get direct feedback. And with VR, you get immediate feedback from a user. They're either not reaching out or engaging, or you can even track using the data systems inside, so you know where their gaze is looking. So you know how much they're engaging with your work. So I think there's a lot to learn, and I just advocate that. I think the answers are going to come from arts and cultural projects like this that look at being genuinely accessible. And I think the UK is very, very good at that, actually. We've got a really strong creative industries, and I think it feels like we're in a good place to be driving a lot of those conversations.
Thank you. I've a couple of comments from our online audience at this point. Imogen Roberts says, what inspiration the performance can be like a fantasy. And Sarah Pictel says, I love the blending in this show, and I feel it's the dramaturgy and the performances that make it so powerful, fueled by lived experiences. It's not tricksy, it's a revelation. It's alarming and touching too. And a third comment from Kate Allen, we think hybridity is the way to go. Great discussion. Does Unreal Virtual Reality City have smell?
So that's one of the things we're sort of going to experiment with a little bit more, but there's something very wonderful about a kind of this city being so pristine that there is no kind of grit or messiness from the outside world.
Yeah.
So we were thinking about introducing, there's a moment, I don't think it's a spoiler, where you're in a cafe, and we were thinking, oh, maybe we'll have some coffee smells and maybe various other smells. And I thought, actually, no, that's the one thing that you miss when you are in our Unreal City, is that kind of lived, real, slightly gritty, dirty, messy, real, kind of tangible.
The kind of visceral
Yeah.
things, I guess.
Yeah, and the things that you experience maybe at a later scene when you're, which again I don't want to give as a spoiler, but there is a scene where you are in close contact with a much more a beautifully organised, messy world, shall we say?
We're not far off eSense. There's a lot of work being done on smell and virtual smell for a number of years, and some really good people in that scene. And although it's not available for all of us yet, we're not so far off that becoming part of the next set of, mass availability from touch, from, as all our senses become pulled into these worlds. So, although we also need to be aware all our data is pulled in too. And that data of the biometric data, the behavioural data that James mentioned, is very important for feedback for all of us, to learn how to improve our experiences. But it's in the corporate and business sector, it's much more about behavioural economics. And we've got to be very careful, again, and we hit a data ethics point there on what we're allowing to be released out beyond our decision as participants in these worlds. So.
And how are the industries responding to the ethics around?
Well, we've seen, Google Ethics Committee, which kind of came and went, and I think is still there, but had lots of problems. And to be honest, in the corporate and business world, D&I or ED&I is absolutely at the top of the tick list of the moment. So it's like women in tech, tech for good, D&I, yeah. But we all know that we might hear the talk, we need to see the walk, yeah. So. But I think, without doing a long list of names and stuff, we are seeing some of the bigger corporate platforms doing lots of research grants out there around inclusivity, around women, around autism, around, into different universities, etc., linked to virtual reality, linked to augmented reality. Also now, of course, linked to the metaverse, yeah, which is the full immersion scenario. And there are some groups like Special Effects and POC Play and even Xbox that have made really clearly, Xbox have their adaptive controller, which actually they really can work with people who have got mobility issues for playing games. And POC Play and Special Effects really do look properly at needs for physically disabled or for autism or for, and even class, and obviously things like race and other issues too. So, but I think the key point here is we can have as much hardware and software as we need. It does need to, from the baseline, be designed with inclusion in mind of all types. But, and I think this is where this comes into, this being a very special piece, it's the content that matters. And if we don't have content made by a diverse set of people, and if we continue just to have content made by mainly like you said, it was James, you know, white men in Silicon Valley, we are, one, it's a very boring world, and two, they're losing a lot of customers, yeah. So, and particularly if you think about all the different types of customers that are going, that's not for me. It just doesn't work for me. Many different types of people.
Yeah, I think we also need to make sure there's gateways to those sort of individual artists who are wanting to experiment with this technology, and it's quite, you know, they don't necessarily have the doors open for them. Cost is certainly an issue. There are some really interesting artists out there. Jane Gauntlet, I know, is someone who experimented a lot with Point of View and is sort of very much an early adopter of that. And I think it really is I think there are a lot of artists who I think would really love to climb into this, but maybe don't have the opportunities. And that's something that needs to be thought about as well, I think.
I think that comes from that it's getting better from that technology point of view, that you can buy a headset for £300, which is a lot cheaper than it was 5 years ago, perhaps, if you need a computer. But also the VR creation tools, so enabling people, you know, the VR's built on one of two massive computer game packages, which can take 10,000 hours to learn and all that, you know, a lot of business. But now you can create an object using a scan from an Instagram photo and import it into a world. So I think those worlds really excite me, of how you can co-create and make work with people in a VR space. So I'm excited for the future, but I agree, it's not quite there yet. But
one of the things that occurred to me, I do a lot of poetic description in the artwork that I produce as a disabled artist, and it occurred to me that there's room in Unreal City for thinking about describing the scenarios, you know, incorporating those descriptions into the script, so that people with different kinds of visual impairment will have kind of more of a clue. But there are creative ways of doing that.
Yeah, we're actually working on audio-described performances, which will be starting next week. And Di Langford, who's leading on that for us, she was in today, and we've been sort of planning that with her. And because of the hybridity of the piece, there are moments where she'll have to move from being in front of the monitor, being able to literally live describe exactly what she can see the audience member is seeing, because she'll be seeing exactly what they're viewing, and it's going to be different for each audience member. And then having to take off her headphones and move away from the monitor and slip into a room where she could be audio describing live while the scene is happening in person. So that's throwing up some really fascinating challenges, but we think we found an interesting way that's going to work.
Absolute hybridity for her too, and actually proves the point about how all this immersion work needs the physical and the virtual together, and that blend of the human and the computer. It's the interface between the two that's absolutely imperative, the integration.
No, definitely. There's just one other thing as well. Well, I'm just thinking there's another artist, Maf J. Alvarez, who's based in Brighton.
Fantastic.
And she's really keen on saying, look, everyone can learn Unity. Yes, it's not so, it does take a long time, but actually there are certain basics that you can learn, and it's really possible, and is really encouraging people, especially people who don't normally go into that world. And I think that's, I just wanted to mention her as well, because she's doing a lot of good work in that area.
And you're absolutely right, it's free to download. You do need a good computer, but you can teach yourself, and YouTube's a fantastic help.
Yes.
So I think it's really good. There is other support out there. I don't think we're quite there in the UK with a knowledgeable network who can support people like individual artists going, how do I get into this? I think that's still really fractious. I think the universities are getting a lot better at it, and there's some really fantastic universities, and some arts organisations and festivals are good, but we sort of need a bit of a bond to help share those funding opportunities and that sort of thing. It's different to making a dance show or a community project or a theatre show. It's just a slightly different format and different budgets, so it's just addressing those
Very
things.
different budgets,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
that needs to be understood in arts funding, definitely, for evolutions around this, access work particularly.
Yes, and I think some of those funding programs that are around really are designed for companies that already have a certain amount of heft behind them and a certain amount of infrastructure and finance that they can afford to do that, and it does mitigate a little bit against those individual artists sometimes.
The good news is Arts Council are very keen, so they'll accept applications for Immersive, so it's seen as an art form, stands up against theatre and dance and music. So
Yeah.
that's
This is quite recent, though, isn't
Yeah,
it, in the
this is-
history of this, because we're only 10 years off them cutting all digital art creative process totally in the mid-2000s. So
but it's good it's back.
it is, yeah, it is very good. But we've have had some ups and downs there, definitely. So it's on and up, but there needs to be more funding for it. And particularly, I totally agree, for independent artists who are experimenting, because that's where the innovation comes from. So if we can feed, those kind of ideas and those new types of formats and thinking about new worlds and new crossovers and blending with funding and get them supported by some of the larger institutions and which have got the back end help and support, that would be great, rather than everybody reinventing the wheel again, particularly the larger institutions.
Yeah, definitely. I should actually it's true that the Arts Council now are much more open to applications for this, so they funded this particular project. So
Good, yeah, great.
And Tristan, there's another question from our online audience. We're being live captioned as we speak, and we will add sign language interpretation to the recording as well. There's a question from Morna McGeoch asking about access for hearing impaired audiences, and I know Unreal City is a work in progress, but she asks, is there room for sign language interpretation and captions within the production itself?
yeah, I think that's something that we need to explore more. I mean, we're sort of looking into that. There's a lot of captioning, and I think there's still definitely more we can do in that regard. I think this is the next stage of the piece is where I think we'll probably take it out of a space and embed it within a city district. I think we want to really push forward all those options, including how we design the BSL elements around it as well. Yeah, so we still have much more to do in that regard, definitely.
Yeah.
And live captioning for Zoom and that's pretty much, I mean, Zoom's kind of in its infancy as well, but live captioning in general, that's in its infancy, because you've got to bear in mind that with something like Unreal City, that some parts of the show are virtually the same across all artists, and then there's one part where every single artist is showing different things, and even if they're showing the same things for their character or their arc, they might express it in a different way. They might focus on a different element of each thing last night. So I'm going to name myself as an example, try to keep it as spoiler-free as I can. So one thing I talk about is a CD. Like I might say, I like this track. I might do a little bit of performance from the track. And there are foreign words, as in non-English words, in my bit of the piece. So how would they be translated? So if there was, say, English, and someone was talking about that time they went to an izakaya in Nagasaki. Izakaya is kind of like a traditional pub thing, and Nagasaki's in southern Japan. Would izakaya be written izakaya, I-Z-A-K-A-Y-A, or would it be written in the native Japanese hiragana, katakana, or kanji? And how would that work for other scripts as well, like Amharic or whatever else, or Hebrew, you know?
The mind boggles. Fantastic. We have a question from our online audience about architecture from Robert Fillery, who says Basildon in Essex is going through a huge change at the moment. It's being rebuilt and millions invested, and already the design and what's been built is not fully accessible. Advice on how to make change. Frustrating when everything will be brand new and state-of-the-art. Little consultation has taken place with disabled communities. If architecture accommodated those most in need, everyone benefits. So it's kind of occurs to me there's a real opportunity with Unreal City to kind of pose something that you know, architects could kind of follow on from in terms of learning.
Definitely, yes. I mean, there's a very interesting, as a neuroscientist called Araceli Camargo, who does a huge amount of work on this, and I think she is really keen that architects and developers really should be working with neuroscientists, amongst others, to really think through carefully about when you are designing, either redesigning a district of a city or completely rebuilding an area of a city, to really think about it from the ground upwards about exactly how you're going to make it accessible for the person who has the most access needs. Because if you do that, of course, you will make it accessible for everybody. And those conversations need to happen, you know, right at the drawing board stage, even before the drawing board stage, and they don't. Often these people are brought in when it's too late, and you know, the main infrastructure, the physical infrastructure has already been planned or even being developed. So I think that's a key thing. Architecture gives us a huge number of implicit signs. You know, when you are walking into a venue, or when you are walking down a street, or when you want to cross the street, you're being bombarded by so many things, and architecture can be extremely good at streamlining that and saying, this is what you need to do in order to get from here to here. And I think there's a huge amount of work to be done on that.
Would have been great if you'd have had architecture students there at Liverpool Street Station at the very beginning.
Yeah, I think they would have just wanted to clear it all away and sort of start again from scratch.
again, yeah.
Really,
I mean, architects in the main are using, you know, high-level 3D visualization tools and VR often on sites now, big corporate sites, etc. Immersion tools. So it does seem rather ridiculous that they're not actually looking at that at the base of it. But I think what we're at overall is we need content and ideas to be led by community. Yeah, and actually that means that architects, artists, all of us have got to go, I'm not the author. Yeah, and actually let go of that, and actually this whole kind of creative user side of it needs to come right at the base, like you say, at the beginning of it. So some sectors, I mean, there's a lot of good community-led architect practice happening, but there's still a status kind of pedestal scenario happening too.
Yeah. There's a project that I know called, that Sarah Pitfall is involved with as well, actually, called Disordinary Architecture, which was led by Joss Boyce, I believe, and that's very much about kind of introducing ideas of inclusive design at the very beginning. There's a question here from Ame Tai, who asks, what sort of research would you see coming off this particular project? Tristan, have you got any thoughts on that?
Research coming out of the sort of after the project, coming after it.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's an evolving project, so there's a huge amount of research went into the project. Certainly there was a lot that Emma and the other performers contributed to. I should add also, by the way, Nick Llewellyn, the artistic director of Access All Areas, is the co-director of the project. And so a lot of research went into it. It's a constantly evolving, and I think it's going to evolve as the world of technology and the big sort of utopian vision we have for how technology is going to transform architecture and the whole world of city development. And I think it will evolve in line with that. I mean, I'm an absolute magpie when I'm sort of, I spend 2 hours very early every morning just looking online at absolutely everything that I possibly can. I've got a massive library of things, and it's just the amount of information that is out there is huge. And yeah, I think things are evolving, and the project has to evolve as as the as the different methodologies are evolving.
There's another audience-focused question here from Heather Allen, who says, went to the show yesterday, thanks, and went to the Fabrica today to a show that was based on a lot of tactile experience. And Heather asks if walking in bare feet might be a part of the Unreal City experience.
No, it isn't, in short. Not at all.
As front of house, I could definitely say no. Shoes are kept on.
I think I remember Blast Theory, who everyone knows, I'm sure, they did a piece called Desert Rain. This was probably 20 years ago, where we did walk through sand and through a rain storm that was made, but actually it was a kind of immersion. It was an immersion scenario with projection, etc. Before walking into the next rooms and the different journeys, they're typical journey adventure scenarios, you know. So I love being in bare feet, so I'd definitely go for it. But
It's not long, is it, until there's the technology is moving with the gloves and
Yes.
and being able to kind of experience tactile experience of virtual objects.
I've heard about, sorry, I'm not quite sure where to start with what point I'd like to make. Tangentially related to feet and walking, I was with another artist yesterday and they were telling me that there's kind of a walking simulator somewhere. Like basically, it's, from what I remember of them describing it, it was like a sort of dipped bowl with a treadmill on it, and the person's feet weren't actually walking, but it kind of simulated that, I think. And I also remember going to see an immersive piece. Unfortunately, I forget the artist now. I seem to remember they were Canadian, and it was basically a story about them and their mother who had cancer. And there was one point where you were tucked into bed like the artist was as a kid. And there was another moment where the artist, i.e. you as an audience member, and the mum, another actor, would hug. And you wouldn't know what the actual physical actor looked like. You'd just see in your VR that it was your mum.
It's called Hold Me Close.
That's it! Thank you! Yeah.
National Theatre Commission. I think it's
Draw Me Close, yeah.
Joshua.
Yeah.
Joshua.
Yeah, that name
somebody.
sounds
Canadian
about right.
artist, you're absolutely right, Canadian artist. And wasn't by any means the first physical VR work, but it did very, very important work, and particularly because it was around that the loss of someone, and bereavement, dealing with those issues. So very special work.
Yeah. Draw Me Close, wasn't
Draw
it?
Me
Yeah.
Close,
Yeah.
Hold Me Close, Draw Me Close.
Yes,
You're right, Draw Me Close, yeah.
You were talking earlier, Ghislaine, about the use of this work for people who've experienced trauma.
Yes, and I think there is, the two sides of this. What most of us have missed during lockdown in our multiple Zooms and different other spaces that we've all been using, which I get completely confused. Go Google now, and now it's Teams, now it's, But what we most miss, and you've seen it written everywhere from quite early on, is, but I can't find intimacy here. I lack presence. There's no presence. How can we build trust with people that we didn't know before physically because there's new people coming in the team, or you've changed jobs or whatever, And these words and empathy, and then dealing with issues such as trauma, the other side, the whole gradient of emotions are still very complex in this immersion scene, because in some ways we're going into a hyper-enhanced state. Our senses are put into a hyper-enhanced state, and in different works or different environments, certain senses are pushed forward further, but you're hyped up in a way, and therefore you can be taken to extreme joy, or special places, or to difficult places. So it's actually how we do the reverse engineering on that, and actually could this help phobias? Could it help people to understand that if you're very aggressive in your stance, that you're putting across a violent situation if you're faced with that, Could it help you understand racial bias if for once you were actually the person that was of the different race, the other, the other? Dealing with otherness and dealing with liveness and presence. And we've still got a long way to go on that. And the gaming world has recognised that probably the last 5 years or so. They suddenly realised that presence is the big issue. And that's why I think, I'm going to say this really clear, performing arts and anyone with performing arts background, body knowledge of any type, really should be at the centre of all these developments. And there shouldn't be any new products or services developed now without live experienced people right at the, we're saying, at the baseline of the group, actually part of the core members of the group. And that's where I think we do need to be a bit braver from the performing arts sector and go, you know, you need me, actually. You know, whatever size the corporate is, whatever company it is, whatever, if you find equipment, hardware, software, platform, a new virtual space that you want to work in, go in and say, actually, you need me too, and I've got ideas to work in here. Because it's all a big experiment for the next 10 years. Yeah. So there's space for us, yeah, there really is.
Could it even be that in that space that, I think they're called OSCE or something, basically an actor becomes a healthcare patient. Could it potentially be that OSCE examinations or tests for healthcare professionals, could it potentially be that they're done with a mix of physical live actors who would be in the performing arts, hopefully, or could it be also that they'd work on VR headsets, I guess? I know there's a question there, and I know there's a point. I just can't articulate it very well.
There is, Emma, there is a history of using the arts for training in healthcare settings, especially working with learning disabled actors, and there's something there, isn't there, to think about in terms of where this show could go.
Remote and immersive health and well-being area, and there's quite a lot happening around mental health in this area too. Again, one that still isn't completely tested out, so we do have to be careful. And the research question, actually, I'm with you, Tristan, that's the base of all of us on our research, but ultimately, the research that proves these things and gets stuff through to the next levels is the pre, during and post research, which is data-led and which is also soft data-led by questionnaires, multiple questionnaires and multiple data coming through. And those go through the data ethics committees, and it's often universities that are the best to lead on that, yeah. And then they're writing up the papers, So another, partnerships between university researchers, performing artists, and platform developers is key to this. And actually, James, you've got experience on this. We were talking about it earlier, how complex that is, yeah.
Well, it is, but that's the partnership you need to build this sort of work. So it sounds complicated, but you need to work with people who aren't the same as you. So in theatre, we want to work with theatre people all the time, but you can't do that because you need to bring in specialisms from elsewhere. And I think that's a real testing but wonderful process when that works well, because you don't know each other's specialism, you have to have a lot of respect for each other, and you make good work and you bring that across. It does give you the scale to go from working on a very small scale to working with some really big international brand names who've got the technology but don't know how to use it properly, or what they're to reiterate your point, it's really critical that we don't feel like this is not for us because we do stage stuff. The processes you already process in your head to make work, theatre work or stage work, performance, fits into this world really, really well. So I think we just haven't quite found as a country the confidence to go like, we're actually really good at this, we could do it, but there's a lot bubbling under, and I think this is a wonderful example of that sort of innovative working.
I'd say we need to be even tougher than that, so we've nearly missed the boat, yeah. And I would say this in the dance sector, which I come from, and I'm well known for this, but we kind of did miss the boat in the late 90s. Actually, no body technology development should have happened without body experts in the middle of it. And we've had now 22 years, and the last 12 years has just been literally, technology is about the body. It is literally everything that comes out. So we've got to get on with it.
So
brave.
Thanks.
Be brave,
We're going to have to bring it, we could go on forever, I think. We're going to have to bring it to a close. It's been a fascinating discussion, and one last comment from Morna McGeoch, who suggests that the sign language interpreters could be avatars within the piece.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Brilliant idea.
Great idea.
Yeah.
On that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to our online audience and to Ghislaine, to James, to Tristan, to Emma and Lucy, and very big thank you. And if you haven't seen Unreal City, then do look out for the next iteration of it in the future. It's still a work in progress, and it's been the brilliant subject area to kind of bring to